Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the football experience. And we have actually some football to talk about, not just transfer rumours and random thoughts and whatnot. So Caleb, how did you like the opening weekend of the Premier League? We'll get into La Liga later. I actually didn't watch any La Liga. I don't know if you did.
If at all.
Yeah.
How did I like it? It was okay. It was good to be back. I'll put it that way. It was like I didn't know this was like the least felt preseason. I think because of last season and the toll. I think being a Liverpool supporter as well. I mean that was like double time toll for last season because you got such a condensed calendar and then the World Cup in the middle, a season like any other. And then if you're a Liverpool supporter on top of that, it wasn't. It was better than being a Chelsea supporter. I'll say that. So at least that was that. But yeah, no, I didn't feel the postseason or the off season as much as normal. But when it came back, I must say it's good to be back. Was I impressed? Was I thinking, wow, we're going to see something crazy this season? Not yet, but it's one game. So what do we know? We know nothing, but maybe we think some things after the weekend.
Well, what's one thing that stood out immediately for you watching? I watched, I think, 3 or 4 games all up. What's one thing that immediately stood out for you?
Ooh, immediately go. Give me yours, and then I'll see if I can get inspiration out of that. I don't.
The strictness of the refereeing, and I'm actually
to yellow card gestures in particular, to time wasting.
A lot of things. Like I'm actually liking it. Like the referees are taking on board that not to take any shit from players, and they're being more strict with the players in terms of and coaches in terms of back chatting and all that stuff, which I'm actually pretty happy with, and they're being very proactive.
Yeah, we definitely. So again, I'll use the mantra. We think that this is the way they want to go this season with that. They definitely have. Liverpool will be affected by the cracking down on taking forever to take a throw in. Because I don't know if you've noticed this in previous seasons. I've noticed it probably for 2 seasons now. Robertson and Trent take forever to bring the ball back in. There was
Arsenal do
they
it
do
too.
that.
Arsenal
Yeah,
do it too.
so I think they're gonna crack down on that gaining ground as well. Well, it looks like that they've made it an emphasis, but again, what do we know? We don't know anything. Will they regress back to the mean when it gets 10 games in and when it all gets a bit, I don't know, when people start complaining and stuff like this? Maybe they will, but I agree. I think it's good. I think the one thing I noticed from the refereeing side, I think some VAR decisions weren't for offside weren't even using the lines. I didn't see the lines being drawn. I'm like, that's great. That's great. Let's just judge it from our eye and see if it's clear and obvious, and we'll go from there. So, some decisions still took a little bit longer. The first thing I noticed was the delayed kickoffs on the Saturday and the Sunday, the Arsenal game. That was farcical. Why that happened? That didn't look great with everyone queued up.
Yeah,
they were trying a new turnstile thing.
Yeah,
technology.
But it's weird. Like they were trying some like digital turnstile or something like that. But like when I went last year, like I had the ticket on my phone and then I just scanned it. So I'm not sure how much more digital you can get than that.
Yeah, so I definitely noticed that. I noticed the delay kickoff at the Tottenham game as well, apparently for no water. The Premier League won't be all that happy about that, but to be the most sophisticated league. But yeah, I think your refereeing observation is good in terms of. All right. Well, the first thing not the first thing I noticed, but the standout thing that I noticed from the weekend, which is maybe a different question. Mine was definitely. Well, this might take us to where we start, but I'll ask you actually. What was your standout rather than the first thing you noticed? Then
Standout in terms of like performance or
whatever really stood out. So the first thing was the referee thing. The standout. I was going to go performance, but
it's probably Newcastle.
Yeah, it's Newcastle. Oh, big time. Yeah. They were so good. They just kicked. They didn't just continue where they left off. They progressed from where they they finished last season. They look so good. Tonali looks so good in that
He,
midfield. And
I want like last season. I was claiming I wanted him at Arsenal, and
yeah,
once again, I know. Who knows whether Arsenal are actually looking at him behind the scenes, but nothing was ever like leaked or announced to the press. But I know that Arsenal tried to go for Gimenez 2 seasons ago, and then Newcastle ended up getting him. So this is another midfielder. Tonali, I know it's only one game. Things could change, like he could die down or whatnot. But this is two midfielders now at Newcastle that I would love to have at Arsenal, and I'm sure you would love to have at Liverpool.
yeah, maybe. I think Liverpool. The other problem with Liverpool is we have such a specific need for the type of midfielder now that Fabinho's left. So I think when we get to Chelsea and Liverpool, we'll go through the new boys for Liverpool in the midfield who I think were fine. But Tonali was definitely a standout, and you can almost see the reluctance on him because of I guess that interview where he said he didn't really want to leave Milan, and I think there's got to take some time. But man, if that didn't unfreeze him a little bit to see what kind of a project he could be a part of, I don't know what will, because I think you can even see the celebration. Some of the Newcastle players were like, go have your moment in front of the fans. And he was just like, he didn't want any of it. He just wanted to sort of shy away from it. But man, and to think we're not talking about an opposition here that were Burnley, even though you had to go to Turf Moor, or even Nottingham Forest at home. We're talking about an opposition that were meant to challenge for top six, maybe top four if things go well, who
Top
spent all
five
that
now.
money. Yeah. And with obviously the new signing on Villa's, would Villa be happy with the new boy Musa Diaby in particular, the
I
main new
think
boy?
I think he looked good.
Yeah,
In
me too. I think he did.
for
As well.
for how like the overall picture of Aston Villa, I think he was probably one of the shining stars. And like not necessarily saying he shone brightly or anything like really brightly, but like if you see like a dog turd in the middle middle of the walkway, and then like there's some like little speck of something like shining out from it. Like it's still like
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying, Villa.
it's like maybe there's something there, but like it's a dog turd. I don't know if you necessarily want to go into it.
It wasn't a performance. We're not willing to
Overall,
say
yeah,
Villa are yet, obviously. But
they looked good for like maybe the first 15-20 minutes, and then they just fell apart.
I'll even say in the first 15, I think they looked okay, but I
They
thought
looked
Emery
okay,
got
like not good,
he
but
got his
okay.
tactics completely wrong. Like the one thing that I couldn't understand was why they were trying to bait the Newcastle press. I would hesitate to say there's not many teams in European football I would put above Newcastle in terms of like whose press do you fear the most, and why in the first 15 minutes at St James's Park, which we've talked about the effect that place has. I've spoken about the fact that I think Newcastle have sort of overtaken Liverpool for that sort of vibe team that are around there. To do that in the first 15 minutes and to bait a press and to ask them come and press us when you know full well that might be their best form of attack is crazy to me. What they did at the end of the game to ship all those goals at the end of the game when they should have just been shutting up shop if they couldn't compete. But that's Newcastle, though. On the flip side, that's Newcastle. They're relentless, and they were at home, and they had the bit between their teeth, and just quietly as well. And I'll talk about another guy who's gonna be in. I don't know if these guys. Well, this guy did need a bit of redemption, but the other guy doesn't need redemption. Who we'll talk about in the Man City game, but the guy who really impressed me, particularly early on, was Anthony Gordon. He looked really good on that left-hand side, and he looked like I think he was player of the tournament at the 21 World Cups over the summer, or Euros or whatever they played. I must
Euros, I think.
apologise. I don't keep up with the unders sort of stuff, but I think he got player of the tournament. You can see a confidence to the way he was playing, and he was actually taking on people, beating people. The cross for Tonali's goal, I think the cross and the run into the box and the finish were all fantastic. Happened in a blur. And yeah, Newcastle, on the flip side of what Villa did wrong, and honestly, going forward, I'm interested to see because I did flag maybe Unai Emery. If it doesn't start well, maybe he's a reason why, or he becomes a reason. I don't want to say a reason, but a narrative around why they're being held back or something. I think it could work out in their favour that Tyrone Mings got an injury. Obviously, I don't wish this upon him, but I don't know why he started with Mings and Konza as the centre back partnership when he had. I don't know about the fitness of Diego Carlos, but he was good enough to be on the bench and come in when I think the game was still in the balance. And obviously, Pau Torres, who spent a lot of money on getting in from Villarreal, why he's not at least starting as sort of the faux left back as a lot of teams use now. So I thought he got it wrong with that. Now, I must also say, Pau Torres in particular did not cover himself in glory when he came onto the pitch. You could probably say the same about Diego Carlos as well. So honestly, going into the season, I thought that's the centre-back partnership I'd want to use. Maybe there's a bit of downside that neither of them really know the league. So the basement is the floor's a bit lower. But for me, the ceiling of those two together is much higher than Mings and Konza. So I don't know what they were doing in pre-season. I don't know why it's Konza and Mings to start. Maybe going forward, that's a good thing for him. But yeah, I think as much as we can be disappointed with Villa, and we have to be, it's one game, so we don't know anything. We just think things. Newcastle, given what they showed last season, and given what they showed on the opening day, and given that place just feels so good at the moment, I might be very close to knowing that is, well, I think I do know that that's a very good team. Do I know if they're good enough to maybe push into the top two discussion is a topic I want to flag going forward. If it's 10 games in and that team are around that third place again or second or even top, which they're fully capable of being around there, then I want to say they're the real deal, and we might have another team to add into the title race. Obviously, title race is too early to talk about, but Newcastle, man, they just keep going from strength to strength. They're really awesome. I think they're the team football wise and by watching wise, they're the team I support the most at the moment. Obviously, it's always Liverpool, but in terms of what I think when I think teams are doing things right, Newcastle are number one for me, for sure, and I full-heartedly support them in doing that.
Yeah, and they've gone about it a different way to like how City went. Because remember when City first came in, though, like they signed Robinho, they signed like a bunch of like star players, but they also did sign a couple like under the radar players as well. Like Vincent Kompany was under the radar, turned into a mega star. David Silva.
They signed Jerome Boateng as well. Like he never panned out. Boateng as well. I couldn't believe it. But yeah, that guy went on to. Well, he made one of my three teams for the last 20 years. So like they did make, to your point, they made those good mid-level signings, mid-class.
And like for instance, David Silva as well. Like he wasn't the star.
He was a pretty big name.
he wasn't a huge name, but he became an even bigger name at City. And like the player that he is, wherever he moved, he would have become a massive name.
I'll throw Yaya Toure at you as well, because he came from Barcelona. I know he'd already won that Champions League, but he wasn't like he wasn't the piece that you would look at keenly to winning that thing. So, and the piece that he became at City,
exactly,
that 13-14 season,
But like Newcastle seem to be doing something maybe similar, because like Tonali, Guimaraes, Isak. Like, they're not... Trippier as well. Like, Trippier was like... Everyone thought he was pretty much, like, on the downward trajectory of his career, but he's rejuvenated his career. And then Botman as well. Like, they're signing some, like, really, like, obscure names. Or, like...
Well, Tonali's definitely not.
Tonali's probably...
Isak even, like...
But the thing is, like, at the start, though, like, they signed some names that, like, you wouldn't... You're like, okay, like, they're not exciting, but then, like, they turn out to be, like... really good players, or turning out to be really good players.
Yeah, Trippier's like the number one key there. Botman came with a little bit of fanfare, obviously not next level, but forgot what I was going to say. This is what I was going to say. Like when you look at the profile of clubs that they were buying from, it's interesting because we thought when they first started the project that they would go for let's weaken those teams that we need to be better than. So at that time it was Leicester. At that time it's probably Villa now, but Villa are on the upward. This summer they didn't really go for that. They got Harvey Barnes in from Leicester, who were already relegated. They got Sandro Tonali in from AC Milan, which is a step up on that. So yeah, I think it's interesting that they feel that they're probably better than that level. Oh my goodness.
What's
Sorry,
happened?
everyone. I'm having technical difficulties. My charge likes to be in a perfect spot.
You've frozen on me. And, well, that is the end of Caleb's reign. We'll come back when Caleb is back. Alright, we're back. Caleb, where were we before you left us
We
temporarily?
were talking before the technical difficulties of this charge of. Right, don't stop. Anyway, we're talking about just the profile of club that Newcastle aside from, and maybe they're showing grander intentions. To your point about their transfer strategy compared to Manchester City's, just grander intentions to go one step further, even though they don't swim in the waters with the traditional elite just yet in terms of the transfer market. But I think Sandro Tonali is one big step into that market. I mean, let's not forget AC were champions just 2 seasons ago of Italy, so and they're 7 times champions of Europe. Did you ever think that we would come to a day where Newcastle was signing key players from AC Milan? I mean, it's just
But
crazy.
not just that, but they're signing, like, Tonali came through the youth system at AC as well, didn't he? So, like,
Yeah, well,
they're not signing like some expat that came to AC. They're signing like an AC native as well.
a
And, like,
player who didn't want to leave
exactly,
to the
yeah, yeah.
point we made at the start as well. So yeah, it might be showing just a greater ambition. And honestly, at this point, why the hell not? Because we could argue that they were the third best team in the league last season. Um, and the way things are sitting right now, I know we're one game in, so we're pretty much talking about the same season nearly. But they are the team who definitely impressed the most, and they kicked off like they meant it. Now we also must flag what kind of effect does having Champions League football have on them this season in terms of anything they want to do in the league. I think they'll find the Champions League really hard because of the physical style they play. I don't know if referees will let them get away with that in the Champions League, and that is a major weapon that might be taken out of their arsenal in that type of game. But who knows if they don't get through the group? Like who cares? We're still in the league. We should be in a good position in the league, and we can put all our eggs in that basket. I know they spent all of last season to qualify for the Champions League, so you want to have a good one. But the bigger point, and I'll finish on this, is they look like a team, and I don't know this, but I think this at this point. they look like a team who should be in the Champions League season after season if they keep playing the way they are and they keep recruiting the way they do, and Eddie Howe just keeps getting this chewed out of the players, and the City continues to be energized by this team. There's no reason they won't finish in the top 4 this year.
I agree with that. Like I can't disagree with that whatsoever. And it's going to be interesting to see how they go against Arsenal and City this season, because I think they pretty much picked up only 1 point. They had 1 draw and 1 loss against both of them last year. So, and I think Liverpool beat them both times. So
yeah, twice.
It's going to be interesting how they go against these teams that should be direct rivals to them. That's the next step, because like we can see that they're going to be beating mid-table and lower table teams.
They should be. Like we say, though, we don't know anything, but that's the thing I feel like out of the weekend, that's the thing I know the most. I'm the closest to knowing that. So I'm interested to see where you want to go next. What was, I guess, the clarity or something that, like, were there question marks around another team, a performance that we saw on the weekend?
Well, let's go into the big match of the weekend, or do you want to leave that till last?
Actually, I do. I feel like I know something from the big match, so I don't know if you want to... Yeah, we'll go into the big match.
We'll go into the big match, and then we can just chop off random things from the other matches that happened. But it seems... Look, I know it was a draw, but it seems like Chelsea are beating Liverpool both on and off the field.
Really? Wow.
Well, off the field, like it looks like they've already secured Caicedo, and it looks like they're going to secure Lavia. And
that's a blessing in disguise for me as a Liverpool fan.
The Lavia one, perhaps.
No, I think the Caicedo one, the 110 million for
110.
Moises Caicedo. My God, what are we doing? We ruled ourselves, and who knows, maybe Jude Bellingham already said no to us, but we ruled ourselves out of the Jude Bellingham race. He went cheaper than what Moises Caicedo will go. My God, Lord have mercy on me. What is the Premier League doing? How can you spend that much on, like, he's a good player. He's a £50 million player. How can you over double that? And I'm being generous with £50 million, I must say, because maybe like 7-8 years ago, before the Premier League just got insane. What's Moises Caicedo? He's like a £20 million player maximum.
It seems like these 100 mil transfers are starting to become the norm, because like there's actually quite a couple. Like for instance, when Ronaldo left, Ronaldo had never broke 100 mil, did he?
I thought he did in the...
It was 94, I think.
No, he didn't. No, he didn't.
He never...
Yeah, I think you're right.
Ronaldo
the
never
Juve
broke 100.
one might have got closer, actually.
Yeah, like Neymar broke 240, but that's only because it was PSG triggered his release clause. But that has nothing to do with an agreed value between two clubs. That's just the release clause being triggered. But similar with Jack Grealish, I think his release clause was 100 mil. But again, like in the last couple of years, like you have Jack Grealish, now you have Rice, Caicedo, Enzo Fernandez, Jude Bellingham. Was there another Real Madrid player?
Not sure. Bale got close. Bale was 100 million euros.
Yeah, I think it was 94 million pounds. So yeah, he would be euros. But then like you have players that are in and around there as well. Like Maguire was 84, I think. Van Dijk was 83. Joshua Guardiola now is like 90 or something.
Guardiola, yeah. No, definitely. Like the overall point is the money has gotten insane, but I'd be very... I was disappointed the Liverpool were even willing to go that high for Moises Caicedo, to be quite honest.
It's funny though, I saw a quote, like I think from 2 or 3 years ago, about Klopp saying once, like it's going to be the death of football once Liverpool or a team that I coach starts spending 100 million on players, and then look at the turnaround on that.
He's an easy target because he says things in the moment that come back to bite him on the bum a bit later. But yeah, no, it's wrong. Let's just call a spade a spade. It's wrong that we're going to start splashing around these kinds of kinds of sums for when that money could make such a difference to so many people, and we're going to spend it on one footballer who's nowhere near worth that much. And I don't mean to disparage Moises Caicedo, who is, like I say again, a good player. He's just absolutely nowhere. It's like the money has no value in football. It's just a number that they throw around.
Well, it just makes you think like if like these players are worth 100 mil, like how much is someone like Modric worth? I know he's 37, but even so, like
because he's 37, it's the valuation comes a lot into.
I know, but like,
comes a lot
but for instance, like I think 10 years ago he went to Real for 35 mil, and that was cheap back then. That was cheap.
35 was the going rate for a really good player in a non-star sort of position. So I think Xabi Alonso went to Real for about the same price. I think even Toni Kroos was... Well, he might have been a free.
I think he was a free.
But, yeah, they were buying those types of players to complement the front three that they were obviously bringing on them in the huge money. And I think that was like a pretty... I could live with that. And even then, we'll talk about 35 million being a lot of money. I mean, those players were obviously exceptional, but...
But you look back at it now, you're like... Someone like Modric should be like 150, 200 mil.
Nah, it's madness, but I think we should go back to your point about beating on and off the pitch, because I'm interested. Was that all off the pitch, or was that more?
Was pretty much all off the pitch, because it seems like, and like I've spoke to Matthias, like he's really hating on Chelsea right now, and I can feel that, because last year Chelsea's pretty much stole or hijacked, whatever word you want to use, Mudryk from Arsenal, and maybe that was a bullet dodged. But maybe it wasn't, because Arteta, similar to Eddie Howe, seems to develop players very well and seems to get the best out of players. So maybe Mudryk wouldn't be the player that he is now at Chelsea if he came to Arsenal. Maybe he would be better. Maybe he would be the same. Who knows? But that's time will tell in terms of that one, because Poch is also I think he's a coach that develops players very well, so he could turn out to actually be the star that we were not but the football world was predicting that he would be.
Yeah, maybe. But in terms of on the pitch, I'm interested to get your take on how you thought Chelsea beat Liverpool on the pitch, because go on.
Well, I just thought Chelsea looked a lot more threatening than Liverpool, and it feels like Chelsea are a lot more of a newer team, and there's a lot more... I think the ceiling is a lot higher for Chelsea, and that they're starting more afresh than what Liverpool are. I know that you guys have a new midfield, but the rest of your team, like your back five is the same. Your front three is pretty much the same, except Gapco is there. But it's only really your midfield that's different. But other than that, like Chelsea, I think it's pretty much, what, 5, 6 players that are new or have come in to that team. So I can see that the ceiling is a lot higher for them. And as time went on in the game, they just seemed to grow into that game. And you don't watch much UFC, but you watch boxing. You know how sometimes there's those matches where you're like, as the rounds are getting on, the boxer or the fighter, he seems to be piling it on, and then the final round, you're just left thinking, if he had 30 more seconds or one more round, he would have landed that knockout blow. And it seems like that way when I watch this game. As the game went on more, Chelsea were creating more chances, they were getting more into it, and if it went on for maybe another 5 or 10 more minutes, I think Chelsea would have won that.
That's fine. That's fair, but what I will say is I don't necessarily agree with, well, not the game perspective, but the overall perspective of what we think Chelsea will be this season, or could be this season. I don't think I agree with any of that, but it's not to say that I think I want to push back and say it's not a Chelsea versus Liverpool thing. It's just a Chelsea thing. And I don't agree with that because I thought, and I'm going to bring up something on the Liverpool side that I brought up last season. Well, so maybe it'll contradict my point. But remember when we played United at Old Trafford, third game in, I think it was, and we had started poorly to the season, and it was the game that everyone thought, all right, Liverpool will just get their shit back together, and United were in dire straits. It's like they'll go to Old Trafford, they'll win 3 or 4 because United are terrible at the moment. That's what's going to happen, and we let United breathe, and as soon as they started breathing in the season. Hey, what do you know? We finished 5th, and United were they 3rd or 4th last season?
Fourth.
I think I thought they were 4th. So there you go. They've taken our place in the top 4, and I think I can almost pinpoint it to that, to us just allowing them to breathe. And I got to say, on this game of the weekend, I thought Chelsea were absolutely there for the taking. And if that was a killer Liverpool who were going to signify that they were back to being at least a certainty for top 4, maybe challenging for the title. As some people think, which is madness to me. But if they were going to say that was a game at Stamford Bridge, they go that first 30 minutes and they're 2-3-0 up. Because Chelsea
I agree
were
with
woeful.
that one. I agree with that point.
I thought Chelsea were woeful in the first 30 minutes. And I thought, now I don't want to pile on to Chelsea too much on this point because I thought Pochettino got his tactics wrong. It looked very much like I thought I was back in 2018 or 2019, back when Pochettino was Tottenham manager and he was going to Anfield because this is exactly what he used to love doing against Liverpool's press back in the day, which shows you how probably not as evolved as we would like to have seen Jurgen Klopp become in all those years. But in terms of what he did against the press, he just said, we'll play with wing-backs and we'll just switch the ball to the wing-backs all day in Liverpool's press. There's always a weak spot in Liverpool's press, either side of that 3-man midfield. So if we can get the ball to them often, Liverpool's press has to run, it has to retreat, and then we can start to play the ball. And I guess that worked somewhat in possession, but what didn't work out of possession was Chilwell's position. I can't believe he played him as pretty much an out-and-out left winger when Colwell was getting killed in the first 30 minutes by Salah. The amount of times Liverpool could get Salah in a one-on-one situation with Colwell was way too regular. And I was just thinking, man, you've got a left back. Just ask him to help more. Ask him to double up more. And against the ball, you've taken away that threat. So I was a bit confused by that. I thought Liverpool got a lot of joy. Obviously, they score the goal because of that. And what a ball from Salah into Diaz. A very nice goal. And then there's that one that's ruled out, rightly so, a little bit later. And I think in that period, Liverpool were the better team. And it wasn't because Liverpool were exceptional. I thought it was because Chelsea were poor. And beyond the tactics, the reason why I don't quite agree with your Chelsea point on how they'll going forward, that starting 11 didn't look very good. Like
they didn't start very
Gallagher and Chukwuemeka. I can't even say his name. I know. I can see it.
Chouameni? No, not Chouameni.
No, not Chouameni. Definitely, if it was Chouameni, I'd be a bit more confident in that midfield. But I was just like, what am I watching? You spent 800 million on this team? What? Like, Thiago Silva's still your best player, and he was already there beforehand. Like, Sanchez in goal, like, I don't know. I guess the back 4 is good. I have a lot of faith in Colwell. I like the wing backs, but Reece James, I don't know the extent of the injury, but he's injured again. Surprise, surprise. But yeah, that midfield was actually getting swamped by Liverpool, and I thought Szoboszlai and McAllister started really well. Szoboszlai in particular, he was all action, he was all over the place, which was good. And then furthermore, in terms of the game, why you might see Chelsea winning on the pitch. I can't go as far to use the word winning with Chelsea. I just thought Liverpool were losing. So in summary, Liverpool were losing in the sense they were letting Chelsea do this because Liverpool, Virgil van Dijk for the goal. Oh my God, what is he doing getting sucked into no man's land when we're still defending a second ball? Like, how's he thinking that that's all right? I thought Ibrahima Konate was exceptional in the game. I thought Virgil van Dijk was, well, I wouldn't say very poor, but he can't run. He can't recover back into positions after he makes a sprint. He needs either competition or a replacement, but we've just made him captain. I don't want to write him off, but I've seen a whole season of last season where he didn't look good. and this, all right, I'm putting Liverpool on blast. If this 10 games into this season, we look like we have the same problems as last season, it is really time to think about having that conversation with Jurgen Klopp and say, do you really still want to be here? Because if Julian Nagelsmann is still in the market, I'm going to look at something like that. And it's cutthroat. It's terrible. It's by no means saying I'm not thankful for what Jurgen Klopp has done, but I can't watch another season like last season. Something will need to change. And there were little reinventions, some of the passing moves last season were great. It's defensively. It needs to be defensively. We need to get solid again. And I don't know. My overall point for this game was I was watching two average teams play against each other, and these teams are not top four Well, we'll talk about what United did this morning actually before we say that with any certainty. But these two teams did not impress me. I'll say that.
Well, I want to try and correct myself because I'll use an analogy. You know when you start like tug of war, and then you have one team of people or one person that like they just start off and like immediately almost bring the little flag like over the line, but like they're just missing that like last little burst of energy, that last little push, and then eventually the other team starts to take over slowly. That's what this game felt like. Liverpool started fantastically, and I agree with that. The first 20 minutes, half an hour. But then, yeah, it just seemed like Chelsea started to come more into it because, maybe...
They scored a goal at a very important time.
Yeah. And it also seemed like Chelsea had a lot more... They had a lot more subs as well to like replenish and replace and rejuvenate the team, whereas you guys didn't really have anyone to bring on to really, especially in the midfield. You didn't have anyone to bring on to bring in runners or anything like that.
Oh, the midfield is so light.
Light. But if you're done with this, I have a perfect transition.
Yeah, go on.
Of what player you guys need to buy, but you won't be able to get in this season because I don't think he's moving anywhere. Can you guess who really impressed me in this morning's game or last night's game?
Morning's game
against United.
Are you talking about Matheus Nunes?
Nope.
Midfield?
Cunha.
Man, that's a one-off.
It might be a one-off. It might be a one-off, but man, he impressed me so much. Like I love players that can break the line running with the ball, like a De Bruyne, for instance. I'm not comparing Cunha to De Bruyne, but like that style of being able to carry the ball through the lines, beat one or two players, and carry the ball forward rather than beating the lines with a killer pass. I really love those kind of power runners, and man, he impressed me so much last night. Maybe it's a one-off, maybe it's not. We'll see how the rest of the season goes. Maybe Gary O'Neill makes something of him. But judge on yesterday's performance alone, he would be great for you guys. Well, if he could play like that every single game,
yeah, of course.
For you guys, you would love him. And I reckon he's a Klopp type player.
Yeah, but he's not the profile of player that we need.
I know you guys need someone. You guys need someone more holding, but yeah, like he would be perfect for you guys.
Well, that's style of play, and yeah, let's go into this game because if we're talking about things we feel like we know more, so we're talking about Newcastle. I feel like I know more that they might be a real challenger this season, and I feel like I know more that Chelsea and Liverpool are average sides. One thing I know less after the first round of fixtures is how good Manchester United are, because I've seen some undeserved 1-0 wins. That one ranks right up there, right at nearly at the top of undeserved 1-0 wins. They were battered off the park. The only difference between this opening game and last season's opening game at home against Brighton is that they somehow managed to win this. Now, sure, if they do this 5, 6, 7 times over the season, then we'll talk about what great resilience. They can win when they were playing poorly. Fantastic. All I saw from a footballing perspective was one team absolutely get, to your point on runners, every time a Wolves player, it didn't matter what player, it could have been Aiton Nori at left back, it could have been Nunez in the midfield, it could have been Mario Lemina, it could have been Cunha, it could have been Neto. Any player who wanted to dribble with the ball, particularly in the middle of the park, got whatever they wanted. All of a sudden, after like 5 or 6 strides of dribbling with the ball, they were at the United back four. Every single time. It happened so many times. And man, we got to say, the most important piece of United last season, Casemiro, there was no presence.
I didn't even see
He
him
had
playing.
Exactly.
It felt like he wasn't playing.
Marcus Rashford, we could say. I think after 30 minutes, I remembered that Marcus Rashford was playing in the game. I was just like, oh, yeah, he is on the pitch, isn't he? But Casemiro, I have never seen that guy have look smaller in the midfield. He was getting dribbled past by everyone, and you could say, well, one thing we need to flag is he's another year older and he's not the right side of 30. So to be asked to get through that workload in the midfield when your reinforcement was Mason Mount, who likes playing more advanced, very questionable. They got him no help over the window, which is a weird one for me. Whereas you look at Newcastle, and one thing we flagged at the end of last season was Bruno Guimaraes can get swamped in there. Hey, you know what we should do? Let's go and get him a little bit of help in there. And then they went out and got him that. So maybe Arsenal, you could say the same with Rice and Partey played together. Although I guess we'll touch on that a bit later. But well, yeah, I definitely, after this weekend, I have more question marks than I am closer to knowing anything about United, because they were diabolical. They were really bad. And this is against the Wolves team who have been thrown into disarray, who have only, appointed Gary O'Neill recently because they lost...
Lopetegui.
Lopetegui. They lost him before the season, and they haven't really made any really strengthened the squad. Ruben Neves has also left the club captain. One thing I'll flag as well with the Euros at the end of the year, I would not be surprised if we come to the end of the year and position
end of season,
next...
not end of year.
End of season, sorry, I keep saying year. When I say year, that's what I mean, season. If we come to the end of the season for the Euros, it's not like the World Cup end of year. I think it'll be John Stones as one of the England centre-backs. I wouldn't be surprised if it's between Levi Colwill and Max Kilman for the second centre-back position, because I think Max Kilman's actually a really good centre-back. If Liverpool had the funds, I would actually go and look at maybe getting him as that competition for Virgil van Dijk. He's impressed me for a few seasons ever since he really debuted, and I think the presence he's become, he's now the captain as well. He's good on the ball. He's quite assured. He's not very old either, so I wouldn't be surprised if he gets a move somewhere and if he is in England contention come the end of this season, because I'm quite impressed with him. He played quite well in this game as well. And yeah, this is a Wolves side who many think will be battling relegation, and yeah, United were battered off the park. Now, to be fair to United, maybe they're a team who learn from these mistakes as they did last season, because let's not forget, after 2 games last season, we will talk about how poor they are, and they did win this game. Let's keep that in perspective as well. So maybe they just learn from this, but man, if Casemiro is a year older and they don't really have help for him, and games can look like this against them, yeah, they could still finish top 4 because the quality of challenger is so poor, but they will be closer to falling out of top 4 than they will be to the 3 above them. Let me put it that way.
Yeah, I can see that. And yeah, if they continue like this, I don't know if they make top 5, to be honest, because I can see Newcastle would if that was Newcastle last night, they would have.
That could have been bad.
That would have been even worse than the Aston Villa result. If that was Brighton, if that was Brentford with Ivan Toney, and I know Ivan Toney's out till like the winter transfer window. I think that's when he can return. But if that was a Brentford with Ivan Toney, I think they would have loved that game. for a couple of teams, they would have absolutely loved playing against United last
Well,
night, and they
Wolves
would have
Wolves
actually
loved it, and they should have won.
they didn't put them to the sword, unfortunately. But these
They
teams
didn't.
that I'm naming, they would have actually put them to the sword, I reckon.
And we've got to say, it wasn't because sometimes United can come under pressure, and you can say they defended really well because they have world class defenders on their day. This wasn't that.
This wasn't.
This
that,
was
no.
Wolves. Yeah, this was Wolves failing to finish chances.
Yeah,
So
because they had more than enough chances, and they had like 2 or 3 that were like open net. I think there was that one. I think it was actually Cunha that put it into
yeah,
the
he
post.
hit the post.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But yeah, if this is the trajectory, I know it's only the opening game and whatnot, but if this is the trajectory of United, and like you've already flagged Casemiro being a year older, and I noticed it last night as well, like Mason Mount was not the player that they needed to buy. They needed to buy someone else to partner alongside Casemiro, because Bruno isn't going to do that defensive duty. And Bruno was another one that I felt was like went missing, and like I didn't really see him at all throughout the game. But yeah,
You can't really say any United players were good. Maybe Wan-Bissaka was
Wan-Bissaka, yeah,
fairly good.
he
Yeah,
was
and I'm
the
happy for
only
him.
one that looked good.
I must say I'm happy for him. I think there's a right back in him,
Yeah,
and I think he can start to show that.
but even he was starting to get a little bit cut up like by Wolves as well. Like because I think it just felt like he had too much to deal with. Like in 1v1s, he looked fine, but there was a lot of times.
Where was Harry Maguire? Where was
on the
where's
bench?
The captain,
former captain.
We need him out there.
Well,
Yeah,
but you flagged the England centre back, like potential centre backs for the Euros. If Maguire does get his move to West Ham, maybe he rejuvenates his career under Moyes. Who knows? So maybe he keeps his spot. But if he doesn't,
he's already a favourite.
If he spends another year in obscurity at United, I don't know how Southgate can justify taking him.
He can't. We're getting ahead of ourselves,
Yeah.
but he definitely can't. If he's on the bench for United all season, you cannot start that guy.
Yeah. But moving along, you mentioned Rice and Arsenal. What did you make of that game?
Underwhelmed by Arsenal, but they did enough. I didn't like how they let.
I wasn't
They let
underwhelmed.
Forest back into the
Yeah,
game.
they left up until that point. I wasn't underwhelmed. I was like, "Oh, this is nice. This is controlled." And then they let Forest back into the fucking game.
Yeah, it happens. It was interesting. The Partey role was fascinating. Obviously, the exclusion of Gabriel was also fascinating. No doubt, doing their best City impression, which they're more than capable of doing. Declan Rice.
He looked okay.
Do I want him in more advanced areas? I don't know if I do. I love him as a screener. I thought if you could just use him more of a screener, I think that Arsenal would have looked a bit more solid in their shape behind the counter press. Not necessarily the ball, not when they don't have possession, but I'll actually throw another name. I talked about Anthony Gordon looking good and somewhat redeeming. I thought Eddie Nketiah looked quite good in this game. His counter pressing when it appeared to go up to the next level, which is always the thing I ding him on, particularly against Gabriel Jesus, who's one of the better ones in the world. But yeah, he obviously gets his goal a little bit jammy. The Martinelli skill was nice, but a little bit lucky how it falls to him.
That felt lucky, yeah.
Yeah, Arsenal were
I don't think the goal was necessarily jammy because like he basically like shifted it past I think 2 players.
Yeah, then through the legs, a little deflection over to the goal.
Yeah, it took a little bit of a deflection, yes, but it wasn't. I don't think it was like jamminess. Like the build up to it was nice.
Yeah. I highlight that to say I'm not saying I've gone full circle and said Eddie Nketiah is a world beater or anything like that. I'm just saying he looked alright at least in the counter press and gets a goal for maybe warrants a goal for looking better in that in terms of karma and whatnot. But the Saka goal was unbelievable. But yeah, underwhelmed just because they weren't really blitzing Forest to get that lead. I'm not saying they weren't worthy of a 2-goal lead, but they weren't peppering them. They weren't really going shot after shot. And then it's not like they saw it out and made it really comfortable at 2-0. It was brought back to a 2-1. So let's not forget, and a big point to take away going forward for Arsenal now is one, they're graded on a higher scale for me because I think they could be the champions, but for me they'll be at least the second best team in the league this season. So you're graded on that type of scale. And like I said, one of the 4 better teams in Europe, maybe best teams in Europe for continuity on the last pod. So they're graded on that scale, which is higher. And now they are the hunted, not the hunter. This is not... Arsenal aren't catching anyone by surprise anymore. Arsenal are established. I think most rational people would put them in the top 2. No, I don't think there's an argument for anyone else to be put in the top 2 right now, to be fair. So most rational people would put them up there as 1 and 2 with City. And for that pure reason, no team is going to be surprised by what Arsenal do to them, which was maybe the case in the first 10 games of last season, because we never saw a level like that anywhere close from Arsenal in previous seasons, not consistently anyway. So for them to come out and blitz the start of last season, and that is where they did their best work, and that is where they made the most of their ground in chasing for the title and leading it for so long. They're not going to be able to do that this season. So that is a question they also have to ask, along with, do they have the determination and to rectify what happened last season? They also have to deal with match on match. This is a cup final for a lot of teams, and this is a team who are coming in with the reputation of at least the second best team in the whole division. So that comes with its own challenges week on week. So how they respond to that will be interesting. They were fine. I was just a little underwhelmed. That's all.
Yeah, I think if it finished 2-0 or even if it ended up being 3-0, I don't think we would have been underwhelmed. We would have just been like, yeah, okay, job done.
Yeah.
Because that was expected of them. The Urian Timber injury is a huge blow.
What is it?
ACL.
Was it? Yeah. Oh, man.
So that's going to be at least half a season, if not longer.
ACL's terrible. Did you see what happened at Real Madrid this week?
No.
Thibaut Courtois gets one in training before the game, and then Eder Militao does his in the match against Bilbao. They're missing 2 key pillars of their defence for the rest of the season, pretty much. Unbelievable. You know the question I have as well. I haven't fact checked this, but how many players back in the 60s and 70s do you reckon were just playing without ACLs? They were doing it all the time, and they just didn't know. They were just whatever.
Well, I know playing. I know with depending, because I think it's like a cross section like this in the knee, and I know
we'll need to get Nico on.
Yeah, we need to get Nico on for this, but I think if one goes, you can still run in straight lines.
Yeah.
So
I know that is a common sort of thing, like straight lines or whatnot. You can do maybe low intensity stuff. Is a little bit, and maybe they were playing with it because it was lower intensity. So it's like, all right, whatever.
Yeah, maybe.
No, I don't know. I don't know about that fact. I've never done my ACL, so if anyone has who's listening, then you can put in the comments what it is like and all of that. But man, just how common they are and how common they've been in the last week is just crazy.
One of my friends did his ACL, and I remember we played a little scratch match, like an 8v8. And he was still waiting for his surgery, so he was still playing, but he was just playing really cautiously and slow, and he wasn't doing too many darting movements, but he was still passing the ball with that leg. And how you have to open up the leg, you have to actually open it up to side foot it. He was still able to do that because I think he only did one. So it depends how seriously you do it. I think if you take out both cross sections, then you're fucked. But if you take out one of them, then yeah.
This is our not a doctor section.
Yeah, pretty much.
Neither of us are a doctor, but yeah, the timber loss, that's devastating.
And I told Matti, once I told him I told him that, and I've said it on the pod, that Arsenal are my favourites, but after losing him, I don't know if I think I have to knock them down a little bit because he just looked so good in pre-season. And even in this game, in the first 45 minutes, he looked really good and really solid. And the fact that he can play anywhere across that back four, he's going to be a big piece that's missing. And I think now I'm hoping that it's like 6 months. I think that's generally 6 to 8 months is generally for ACLs. It might even
He'll
be.
miss the rest. I reckon it'll be the rest of the season.
Well, it
Because
depends because
he
like
won't be ready in time for those intense games at the end of the season, I don't think.
it's a shame
Even if
that
he is recovered.
it's a shame there's not a World Cup in the middle of the season. I don't know. It depends because like I know that like with the new technology and everything like that, I know like some UFC fighters like they've come back after like after 4 months after doing an ACL because like the recuperation and everything like that has completely changed, and like you have all these new methods of recovery and all that stuff and new methods of surgery as well. Like you can but like who knows how long it will take. But then also, yeah, like Jesus is missing. I'm not sure how long he's missing for. I know that City have De Bruyne missing, but I don't think that's as serious as like this. But he's probably going to be missing for a couple of weeks. And I feel like with Arsenal, like we can't afford to be losing these players, whereas like City can afford to lose De Bruyne for a little bit.
Yeah. That is one player they probably can. Like, even though he might be their best player, it seems like he is the player they maybe can afford to lose the most.
Yeah. So we'll see how the rest of the season goes. And I don't know where Zinchenko is. So I didn't see him at all in the preseason games. So I'm not sure if he's...
You have 3 injury-prone left-backs, it seems.
Yeah.
Well, maybe Timber's not injury-prone, but he's injured now forever. So, but yeah, Tierney and Zinchenko are quite injury-prone.
Well, yeah. So I'm not sure what's going to be
At least you
happening
didn't
there.
sell Tierney. At least you've still got Tierney.
Yeah, at least we still have him. And
really crucial right now.
And I'm guessing he's going to be coming. And like Tommy Asu can play there as well.
Yeah.
But I think this sort of like, after seeing what Arteta wanted to do on the weekend, this sort of might ruin this like these surprise formations or surprise plans, because like Partey pretty much doing a Zinchenko and coming in off the, I know he was playing right back, Zinchenko was left back, but pretty much doing that same thing but on the opposite side where he comes in from right back into the midfield. Ben White looked pretty solid at centre back. But you know what I would have liked to have seen? Instead of Havertz in the midfield, replace him with Jorginho, have Jorginho playing as a defensive mid. Partey is coming into the midfield from right back, and then push Rice up. That would have been, I think, better than having Havertz in there. But even though Havertz, he played okay.
Havertz was okay.
He was okay. He didn't put a foot wrong. Well, let's put it that way.
I'm interested to see if Arteta can get away with, or if he just knew that this was the type of game where he could get away with it. But if teams can actually pin Thomas Partey and make him play as a right back, if that's the nominal defensive position you've got to put him out, better teams will be able to sort of push that back and maybe make him play more often as an actual right back rather than this hybrid. And then that becomes a problem. How mobile is he? How agile is he in those positions? How much help does he need? So I don't know. It seems like Arsenal and City, and this might offer the perfect transition because we expect these two teams to be the ones competing with each other chiefly. In terms of their defensive strategy and what they favour in defence, it just seems like these clubs want maybe the best centre-backs, as we've seen with the Guardiola signing for City. And what we're seeing more and more is that if centre-backs are actually given the licence to be part of the team and to be asked to build up the play a bit more, a lot of them are actually capable of doing it. So now we're just saying, all right, I want the best defenders, I want the best physical specimens in the team, and these guys are more than capable with the way that they're brought up now, that they can just play as a back four of 4 centre-backs, because all 4 of these centre-backs can actually play with the ball. There's no problem here. It doesn't matter. Like, the one who absolutely has blown my mind is Manuel Akanji. Since when has Manuel Akanji been like back in the day, he'd be a serviceable left back. Like, I'm not saying he's Theo Hernandez or anything like that. Heaven forbid. But I'm saying, like, he can do some things. He can get up and down the line. He can, if he's asked to, maybe he could get a cross in. He's a huge guy, so if he gets in on the back post, That's great. He can obviously defend because he's a centre back by trade. So that's good. So what's the problem? We don't need this sort of great left back like a Tio Hernandez, for example. We got this guy who's probably maybe not a better defender, but a more diligent defender, because the perception is he can't do as much going forward, but he can actually do enough going forward. So it seems like this seems to be the tactic from these types of teams. That it's like, you know what? Let's just put our best defenders in there. None of them are horrible with the ball anymore nowadays, and we can defend solidly. We can be diligent enough. We can be physical enough, especially. And Guardiola pointed it out. I don't know when he gave the interview, but I think it might have been at the back end of last season. The question was like, how is this team different from the team last season? And he was talking about defending the box. They defend the box better. And then we defend set pieces better. We defend... Well, clearly, when you have 4 centre-backs in the team, that's probably going to be the case. So the way that they've... Guardiola chiefly, and that's why it's a transition to City, the way he's been able to problem solve and maybe even just give these centre-backs more license to do what they do on the ball and solve the problem of, if I play 4 centre-backs with possession, we're not going to be very good. But the fact that it's not even a problem at the moment, and Guardiola's more than capable when he comes into the team. I know he didn't start against Burnley, but yeah, City, in the game perspective, if we take it more to the micro level though, they kicked off where they finished last season as well. And I think probably my big takeaway from City was I mentioned it in passing, but I didn't emphasize it enough. Erling Haaland's going to be better this season. That's really scary. That's scary for the league. This guy, look at his mentality. There's no way he's not going to be better this season. Only an injury can derail him from that quest. I thought you could see that there had been an intention to work on his link-up play in the summer. It didn't always come off in this game. I don't think he's anywhere near the finished product in that. I don't know if he'll ever be a great link-up player, but he will get better at it. And the finishing was remarkable. It took him 2 goals already at the start of the season. I mean, how many he could get? He could get another 50. The mind boggles. But also, one thing that he definitely can improve on is turning up in the bigger games for next season. And I'm not saying he shies away, but we know in the run-in when City became really good, that's kind of where he tailed off a little bit. So if he can fire when City are firing and it's at the most important stages, he'll naturally be better for that. So that was my big thing. Obviously, 2 goals. I know it's against Burnley and he did this all last season, so there's no tangible thing to suggest that he is better. But he will get better because it's Erling Haaland and he's an absolute machine and his mentality is elite and he is elite. He's an elite physical specimen. He's an elite goal-scoring specimen. He's unbelievable, and that's... it doesn't worry me because I'm a Liverpool supporter. I don't expect to be there, but it should worry you as an Arsenal fan who's trying to decrown this team because, yeah, I think he will be better this season, and that's scary.
Well, I think the more scary thing will be him learning how to play without De Bruyne, because
with Alvarez though.
Yeah, but
it's not a bad.
I know, but
he'll be better as well.
But there was, I think, for the first half of that season last year, it just seemed like every single one of his goals was an assist from De Bruyne or Cancelo while he was still there. And is Cancelo back there, or has he gone out on loan again, or did they sell him, or what?
He was, but the latest talk was Barcelona already submit a bid, so
Okay.
Your prediction may be coming true on that one.
Yeah, but you get what I'm saying. Now Haaland is going to learn how to play with the rest of the team. He's going to learn other link-up channels and whatnot, and yeah, it's just going to become even more dangerous.
Yeah, more diverse.
Yeah.
For the season's challenge.
And your note on the mentality. Do you remember when we used to call Ronaldo a flop in big games, and then he moved to Real Madrid, and then he started scoring hat tricks in these second leg quarterfinals, semifinals, and whatnot, and then he started showing up and scoring goals in finals as well. So early on in his career, when did he move to Real? When he was 25 or something, 26. So
sounds alright.
In the middle, just before he started peaking, he was still sort of had that stigma of flopping in big games, but then he became a mentality monster. So, and Haaland's only like 22, so he still has. It seems like you can grow into a mentality monster. It's not always something that you're just born with. Like the more time that you're experienced
Oh, yeah.
with
Oh,
those situations, the more you'll grow with it.
well, yeah. I want to throw an NBA. Well, not an NBA, but NBA examples. I think, from my experience, the average age where people, all-time greats, I'm talking, win their first championship seems to be late 20s, 27, 28, probably 28. I think Michael Jordan was that old, maybe even a year older. He might have been. LeBron was about that old. These sort of all-time
I
greats,
think it would have been
unless you
like
were,
26, maybe even 27, because he had like a year and a half off, and then I think he won his last
yeah,
one when he was 36, was it? Or was he 38?
30.
I think he was
No, I think it
36.
was 30.
He was 36 when he won his
Anyway,
last
us
one.
fumbling through, but it seems like late 20s is when these guys can rise
Yeah.
to the biggest stage and the biggest occasion and get it done. So if we're using that for a maturity in terms of dealing with the spotlight, then he's well on his way. He might do it earlier, who knows? But he's scary. City question marks? Not really. They didn't even have to play Grealish, Ruben Diaz. Any of these players in this game are. Well, I do think they look a lot worse without Ruben. But like now we look going forward. The scary thing is when we're talking about this centre back thing that he's doing. They've got the best centre back in the world for me in Ruben Diaz, especially for big stages. He is the best for me because he's still performing at an elite level and he's won pretty much everything in the game. And now they have
The best
two
young centre back.
borderline. I was going to say two borderline number ones playing as number twos next to him in John Stones and Josko Guardiola. And if it's not him, it's Ake. If it's not him, it's Laporte. If it's not him, it's Akanji. God. If it's not him, it's Rodri if he needs to slot in there.
Kyle Walker as well has
let's be
shown that he can play in a
Oh,
three.
Kyle Walker. Sorry, yeah, I didn't even talk about Kyle Walker. So, and let's not forget. For me, they have the best holding midfielder in the world. I'm not doing this on the reaction of one game, Casemiro. I'm not doing that. I'm just saying you're a year older. This guy's in his peak, and Rodri is an absolute unbelievable holding midfielder. So that defense, man, looks impenetrable. Will the possession thing maintain? That's my question. That's my only question with Manchester City. Will delivering balls forward with John Stones and Josko Guardiola and Kyle Walker and all these players be enough? It probably will be, but it's still a question I have. Like, can teams just figure it out? Figure out the box, figure out how to stifle them, figure out how to ask those centre backs to do more with the ball, to do even more, and see if they can answer those problems. But I don't know. We'll talk about ways of not stopping City, but maybe nullifying them during the season as we see more. Do we need to do the Tottenham Brentford? Is that like the last sort of game of note?
Eh.
I don't really think there was much to talk about. Tottenham, you could just see the personnel's not right, but I think they'll be more exciting under Ange. I must
Oh, yeah.
say, the signing that slipped under the cracks is Destiny Udogie, who I think is going to be a really good left back. And if Tottenham aren't very good in the coming seasons, he should get a move somewhere bigger because I think he's only like 20 himself. He really impressed me. He's already physically good enough to play in the Premier League. Intelligence-wise, he really impressed me because he was being asked to sort of play this inverted role, which I didn't know he would be good enough in his development just yet to do. I still don't know it, but what I saw on the weekend was pretty encouraging. So yeah, I think like City probably could have used a player like that. I will be honest, maybe a more orthodox left back for some games that call for that sort of player. And one thing I'll also say is, I hate to do it to you, Brentford, but I am actively rooting against Brentford this season. I would like to see Brentford get relegated. They're in my burn. I don't think they will. By the way, I don't think this will happen, but I would like to see it. They're in my sort of Burnley mold now, where I think they're getting a little bit too much credit. I think they're a little, whatever as a team. They're okay. They're fine, but they don't light me on fire or anything like that. So that coupled with the fact they get all of this credit has sort of annoyed me. So I'm kind of going against them a little bit this season. I'm zagging on everyone. Everyone can love Brentford all they want. I'm zagging on them. I hope they get relegated. Sorry. I'm just saying it.
That's all right. We can all have one team that we hate and we're rooting against. I think for me, it's...
I wouldn't go as far as hate. It's just the hype around it. I hate the hype.
I think for me, it's probably Everton.
Yeah, fair.
Yeah.
Everton are terrible. But Everton give us good comedy. So
yeah,
why
but
would we want...
Maybe
they won't under Daesh this season.
Yeah, but I've already told you about
my
brother's friend, and I guess he's my friend now as well. But like, yeah, and like he just I just want them to go down just so he has to suffer in the championship, and like I don't know, like, do you need to pay like an extra subscription just to get the championship? Like,
it's not on Optus, it's on KO, I think.
Yeah, just make him fork out like an extra $20 a month just to have to watch his team. Like, yeah, like suck on those nuts.
Everton in the crosshairs, fair enough.
Yeah, and I don't know, maybe it would be a good reset for them as well, like considering all the crap that's gone on behind the scenes at the club. So
Newcastle went in the championship very, very long ago.
Yeah,
I know they did get an investment, which kind of helped, but that's whatever. Everton to get the stadium.
Yeah, that's the other thing. Like they're getting a stadium, and that means that they won't be able to really recruit players, will it? But it could make them a favourable location, like maybe in 2-3 years once the stadium is actually fully completed.
Maybe if they ever show that they're a competent footballing team, that might make them a bit more desirable. But
that will take time though.
Evidence of the last 2 seasons.
Yeah, but look at, for instance, Newcastle. Like, just before Eddie Howe. Eddie Howe came in. Eddie Howe.
Heady days. Heady days with Eddie Howe.
Eddie Howe. But just before he came in, like weren't they like dead last, or like they won one game in like 17 or something like that. Like, and we're like, okay, they're getting relegated, and then like the second half of the season there was a complete turnaround, and they only really brought in like Trippier and I think like one other player. But other than that, like they completely got transformed in that 6 months, and they ended up finishing like 10th or something. So it's not out of the realms of possibility. Like if you can bring in the right coach and 1 or 2 signings, really.
Well, Everton probably not to the level of Newcastle just because it's a one club city, but they're in a major city for football, that's for sure. And I always think clubs are stronger if they have a strong rival in their city. So, from a Liverpool's perspective, it might shock you, but I've always wanted Everton to do well. Not 2004, 2005 well, where they actually finished above us in the table. Never that again, but just well. You know, I don't want them finishing above us, but just do reasonably well. You know,
like
so we
mid-table.
can have a strong rival. Yeah, maybe high mid-table. Maybe only a couple of spots
mid-table, Conference League.
But just don't finish above us. Yeah, don't finish above us again. Well, ideally, I would like us to be finishing first, and then Everton can even finish third if they want to. But that's not going to happen this season. So don't worry about that one.
Well, City have been doing fine without United on their coattails.
True. United sort of signified that they might be here last season, though. So. Although they didn't do it against Wolves.
Nope.
They did not do
not at all. Nope. Anything else to add before we sign off? Are we going to touch on La Liga at all, or not really? There wasn't. I don't think there was really anything.
On the point of disappointment in terms of United, I'll touch on a little bit from around the continent. It won't take me too long because one thing I want to say is PSG. My God, they were really bad to watch. Now, when you started last season with Neymar, Messi, and Mbappe as the front three, it doesn't quite hit the same when it's Gonzalo Ramos, Kangin Lee, and Marco Asensio as your front three. It's not quite getting my juices flowing in the same way. Now, I know it was a disaster, those 3 last season, but man, this wasn't exciting. But I will say, they still have the best one of those 3 at the club. Come hell or high water, somehow he's still there. So you can expect Mbappe to start playing soon, and they should look a lot better for it. I think Ashraf Hakimi has to start showing that he's once again a world-class right back, because last season I did not see that at all, and he was pretty poor in this game against Lorient at home, which they only drew 0-0. No surprise when you look at that front three. That midfield still is really... if I want to be harsh, I'll say poor. If I want to be not harsh, I'll say underwhelming. The defense is really good. The goalkeeper's really good. So that's one thing to hang your hat on. But the Luis Enrique effect, we're not quite seeing yet. I don't know if the personnel's good enough for it to really matter. Obviously, Neymar's going to the Middle East now, so good riddance to him. His career is all but officially over, which I predicted after the World Cup, because he just wouldn't have had the juice to keep going. But anyway, Ligue 1 looks diabolical this season. It really does. I mean, when you think that the best team from last season, Lens, even though they didn't win the league, have lost their two best players, or two of their three best players in Luis Openda going to Leipzig and Seko Fofana going to the Middle East, then I don't know what they're meant to do this season. They lost on the weekend as well to Brest, so... Marseille, I think there was talk of Sanchez going back to Barcelona at one point, so I don't know what's happening with Alexis Sanchez. He's the only guy who excited me from Marseille last season, so yeah, all in all, Ligue 1, it's not a horrible thing that I lost. I have to search the deep recesses of the internet to find Ligue 1 games this season, because I don't think many of them would have been attracting me anyway, apart from the maybe Mbappe and PSG factor, because they could maybe do something in the Champions League. But yeah, that's Ligue 1. We'll do the...
Hang on, just before
while
we're on Ligue 1, did you see the clip that I sent in the group chat regarding the refereeing?
I did not.
Basically, they've brought in sort of that rugby league style of VAR.
Yeah, you can hear it.
Yeah, and it was actually really good and really refreshing. Seeing and hearing the conversation between the refs and the VAR booth, and it was the at least the isolated clip that I saw. It's I want to see this in the Premier League, because I would have, and we didn't touch on the Wolves one. I would have loved to have heard what they were talking about regarding the Wolves penalty or non-penalty, but just quickly we'll bring it back to that as well since we're on it. Is that a penalty for you? Yes or no?
I don't know.
Well, okay.
Probably. It was, but that might be my bias for karma reasons, thinking that Wolves did not deserve to... Well, no, not Wolves did not deserve to lose. United did not deserve to win the game.
Well, hang on. Well,
so I might be tainted.
Well, let's just say in the middle of the park, ball gets thrown up, and then a midfielder... There's two midfielders. One of the midfielder gets a foot to it first, so he doesn't control it. He just gets a foot to it first to clear it, or even just pass it first time, and then he gets cleaned up by another player that's coming onto it. That's a foul, 100%.
The problem is the player who got cleaned up didn't head the ball. It was Dawson behind him who headed the ball.
It's even worse, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't know what happens in that situation. Is it a yellow card for Onana for assault? And maybe that's not even a footballing matter. Maybe they need to go to the police to press charges, because the ball's not there. But I don't know, man. Is it an indirect free kick for dangerous play? I actually don't know what the intricacy
Onana
of
was
the law
coming
is.
he came in there without any control whatsoever. So it should be something.
I agree it could have been given. Yeah, I agree it could have been given quite easily.
It should have been given.
Yeah, I don't know. It should have for karma reasons. It should.
Regardless of karma or not, it should have been given.
Maybe.
But anyway, continue on. At least we touched on that, and we touched on something that needs to be added to the Premier League in regards to...
It would be nice, yeah.
Listening to the conversation.
I want interviews for referees after
that
too. Games. I want to hear what they have to say. Even if I didn't get the audio, I want to hear them after games going through decisions. But I guess we did France, so we'll quickly go to Germany, because I don't know what they call the game. Is it the Super Cup or whatever?
It's their Community Shield, isn't it?
That's exactly what it is. And Bayern got beaten 3-0 by Leipzig.
The Harry Kane curse, the Tottenham curse.
Still hasn't got a trophy, and he's going to have to wait until at least the end of the season now. And that could have been a good way to start your career and tell everyone why you went to Bayern, but he didn't start the game. He didn't come on until I think they were already 3-0 down. And my God, look, Thomas Tuchel has won one trophy by the skin of his teeth at Bayern Munich since he's been there. I know he hasn't been there that long, but that's one out of a possible four. That's not good enough for what they brought him in to do. And now I think they've had the best recruitment of the summer. And yes, it's one game and it's a glorified friendly, whatever you want to say. It's still a piece of silverware on offer for Bayern Munich, which they should be snapping up. But yeah, they've had the best recruitment of any of the bigger clubs in Europe this summer, I would say, in terms of Kim Min-jae and Harry Kane coming in. So I'm not saying... I'm just saying he has his work cut out for him now, Thomas Tuchel. You better find solutions. You better find ways to make your team look better than what they did against Leipzig, because they were poor. You better find out that Dayot Upamecano is not the guy, even though none of this result is on him, to be fair to that. And to be fair as well, the problem he maybe has is that Matthias de Ligt isn't that guy either, because he just continues to not look like he's progressed. And this is a young centre-back who we thought would be a world beater at Ajax, but where's it gone? So Kim Min-jae looked the part when he came on at halftime. He looked better than anything else they had, to be fair, which is at least that. But yeah, man, Bayern losing another trophy. And to the point of breathing, they let Leipzig breathe. Leipzig should have confidence from this result because I think it was at the Allianz as well. And yeah, they're a team who got decimated over the summer, losing arguably their three key players over the summer, and one of them went to Bayern Munich, and Konrad Laimer got substituted at halftime. But yeah, they're a younger team now. They did get, as I said, Luis Openda from Lens, who I thought had a fantastic season. He should be a really good pickup. If Dani Olmo is injury-free, then that team is at least a threat for second place. I think, yeah, they're a threat. I don't know, but Bayern should win this league at a canter. The main point is, I think Bayern not winning the league by at least double-digit points would be a failure. And they've got to really challenge for the Champions League. So Thomas Tuchel, if he doesn't do those things this season, there's nothing... For me, there's nothing to suggest he should be in the job at the start of next season. Especially the way they treated Nagelsmann.
What's minimum for him? Semi-finals of the Champions League? Minimum?
Look, you can let them get away with if they meet City in the quarterfinals and they give them a real ding-dong and they go really hard at beating them. You can let them have a pass. Is there any other team in Europe you can let them have a pass against? No. They should, with this investment and what they've bought in the summer, they should beat Arsenal, they should beat Barcelona. Like, I'm saying these teams can easily beat them. Barcelona and Arsenal can beat them.
Real Madrid.
But that would be a failure. Yeah, that would be a failure for me. Real Madrid, who I think are a striker away from being the real Real Madrid. So when you put it in that term, this is as good as Bayern Munich, maybe barring a holding midfield, but they brought in Konrad Laimer. So they have addressed that area. So this is as good as Bayern Munich think that they can be. So if they get beaten by Real Madrid, I don't think Real Madrid are as good as they think they can be. I think probably Arsenal will think that they could get better than what they are this season. So the only one that you could give them a pass for is Manchester City. So if they don't meet Manchester City, they have to at least make the final where they meet Manchester. For me, it's Bayern Munich. The only way Thomas Tuchel survives in the Champions League is if they get beaten by Manchester City. If they don't meet Manchester City, they've got to win the whole thing for me. Because getting Harry Kane in, that would be a crying shame. I think on paper they're the best team for me after the inclusion of Harry Kane. And they need to act like it. And they need to kill the Bundesliga. They have to kill the Bundesliga. No one in that league is anywhere near as good as them on paper.
But who did they sign as a replacement to Lucas Hernandez? And I think Pavard is on his way out as well.
Well, if Pavard does go, they kind of have a problem. Although Mazraoui would kind of impress me when he came in, even though he gave away a somewhat dodgy penalty. Obviously, Alphonso Davies, that's why you asked that question, because he's shown that he's a little bit injury prone. I guess Mazraoui can play either full-back position. And obviously, João Cancelo's gone, so they might be a little bit light in the fullback areas.
They seem light, like on paper and off the top of my head.
If Pavard goes, they are light.
Yeah.
I think they're lighter in right back than they are left back, but they may be light on both sides. But yeah, that's where you have creativity. You've got three excellent choice, or what should be on paper excellent choice centre backs. It's about Thomas Tuchel getting at least Mateus de Ligt to the next level. I mean, yeah, and they need their goalkeeper back as well. It must be said, but I don't know. I'm just flagging that. I've been flagging that one for a while. To be fair, I've been flagging that one ever since Thomas Tuchel came into the job. I've been saying, look, if you're going to get rid of Julian Nagelsmann, we need to grade you on a very harsh scale. And for me, the best that I could give Thomas Tuchel so far is a D. I couldn't give him anything more than a D because, like, you could say, yeah, they won the league though last season. They won that thing in the very last.
They got it
of
handed
the last
to
game.
them because it wasn't.
Someone handed it exactly.
The thing is, the league wasn't up to them. Like, it's not like, oh, all we have to do is win and we win the league. It's we have to rely on Dortmund not winning, and Dortmund, screwed the pooch.
Yeah, and even though they did, they still needed Jamal Musiala to score in the 90th minute of their game as well. So, yeah, nothing convincing about Bayern Munich at the moment. And 3-0 is a bit of a hammering at home as well. So that result was one shocking one. And obviously I tuned in because I wanted to see if Harry Kane was starting. Who knows? They might be different. They should be different in the league and they should win that thing easily. So another league that I don't have much excitement for. And wrapping it all up, the third league that is not very exciting, but it is questionable, is La Liga because, my God, I don't know what's exciting about La Liga. No, I'll tell you what's exciting. I don't want to finish on a negative. I'll give you your dues because with your prediction of Real Madrid winning it, I still don't know if this will happen. But there's no doubt that their ceiling is the highest, and Jude Bellingham was fucking fantastic against Bilbao. And it will throw in the question, though, who is the leader of that team going forward? Because Vinny was not very good at all against Bilbao. And it was up to Jude Bellingham to be the one who looked good. And Rodrigo, to a certain extent, he looked quite good on the right. The four midfielders are really strong with Camavinga, Bellingham, Valverde, and Tchouaméni. Those ACL injuries to key pillars in the defence is worrying, to say the least. I know they got Rudiger to come in for Militao. That's pretty much a one-for-one replacement. But now you're relying on... Well, firstly, they signed Arrizabalaga from Chelsea, who will now be their number one pretty much for the whole season.
Didn't they get De Gea as well?
Did they get De Gea? I
thought they got De Gea as well.
If they got De Gea, I have a little bit more confidence in that, I guess.
Let me check that while you go on.
Yeah. But they're also relying on David Alaba to go pretty injury-free for the rest of the season. Otherwise, they're into Nacho territory, who isn't terrible, but I don't want to rely on him for a season. So that is the one thing that goes against it. But the way the Barcelona looked, Rafinha absolutely has a brain explosion, gets himself sent off. Surprise, surprise, they kept another clean sheet in drawing 0-0 with 10 men against Getafe. But against Getafe, you should be winning that game. Atletico, I watched the first half of them against Granada. I want to say it was Granada. They were diabolical themselves. Antoine Griezmann is the only spark. The fact that they haven't strengthened in the summer, they haven't made themselves look better, is worrying. Koke got injured in the first 5 minutes, and I already talked about my worries of him lasting a season while he couldn't even last 10 minutes. So... yeah, Real Madrid, I don't know, this league is wide open, but none of... Barcelona have the potential to be good, but now they're missing Rafinha for a few games after they've sold Dembele to PSG. Yeah, man, I don't know. The league is wide open, but I'm not holding my breath for a high-quality title race in Spain, I must say. And I have no idea who's going to finish fourth. Because I think Sociedad will again, but they could only draw at home. And that's a problem for them. So, yeah. I think if Wolves played in La Liga, they might fancy their chances to finish fourth, to be quite honest.
They actually looked really good. I'm really impressed. After last time, I'm really impressed with Wolves. De Gea, apparently he might be going to Bayern. That's the latest rumour.
That'd be a good signing for Bayern, I think.
But then there's also talks of
good.
him potentially reuniting with Ronaldo at is it Al Etihad or Atihad? Saudi Pro
Is
League
he? Is
essentially.
that
There's
Ronaldo? I thought. Yeah, I can't keep up with who's where. I
well,
did see a nice post in my Instagram with one of the games over there with Hendo and Sadio Mane, the two captains, and they were obviously doing the coin toss. So that was a bit of nostalgia there.
did you
Who'd have thought
see?
they'd be there?
Did you see? You know how when the players are leaving the stadium and they're all getting on the team bus and then like all the fans like line up alongside the barricades and then like they try to like get signatures and stuff. I saw this one clip of like this one sheikh or whatever the hell he is. Um, he basically gave Fabinho a Rolex just because he had a good game. Like he just handed him a Rolex and like gave him a hug and everything. And it's like, hey, you know what the funniest thing is? Like he put it on his hand and everything like that, and somehow it fell off his hand and like fell on the ground. And it's like,
Oh no!
so like I don't know if it got smashed or something as well, but yeah, like in the same moment, like on the same clip, like it actually fell off his hand. But yeah, like they're just handing out Rolexes to players as well now. So
Do you think? Do you think all the players going to Saudi Arabia? Maybe that's a reason why I felt a little underwhelmed, particularly by other leagues that weren't the Premier League, in terms of who the challengers would be. Because maybe some of those players, they don't feel like they're at the very top level, but maybe a Borussia Dortmund buys, I don't know, a Fabinho or someone like that, and they look better for it than what they did last season. Maybe Atletico buy, I don't know who else went. Maybe Ruben Neves as the replacement for Koke.
yeah,
Like those teams would instantly look a lot better. So maybe Saudi are doing their job, I guess, the Saudi Pro League in buying these players, because for one, I think like an N'Golo Kante, he could have been at PSG on the weekend. So when I see players like that who I think could still be doing a good job for these types of teams in Europe, I mean, I'm feeling their absence, I must say. Yeah, I think those teams will be stronger for having players like that.
did you see Neymar's pay package? I think it's like 3 million a week. He has he got given a mansion that's fully staffed. He gets $500,000 per Instagram post or story that promotes Saudi Arabia. Like just all these like packages or his own private plane. Like he doesn't own it, but he has access to it whenever he likes as well. Like his own private jet. I mean, it's insane what some of these guys are getting. It's like, well, I'm not surprised that they're moving there. And like Neymar's our age. I think he's like a 92 child. So yeah,
Neymar is, and I don't want to
he
blow it out of context.
He rejected
because
Barcelona because I think they put in a 90 million euro bid for him, and
he doesn't want the stress of playing top level European football anymore.
Yeah.
I don't think he'll play any more World Cups, and he knows that.
Dude, he gets
he
gets a ton of Twitch streaming as well, because he gets all these
Yeah,
Brazilians like watching. He gets like 100,000 viewers and stuff at a time.
Neymar could have been maybe not in the Messi and Ronaldo category, but he could have been pushing right in there, and this should be his time. He should maybe be the best player in the world right now. He chose not to because he doesn't have a commitment to being a professional, and that's why he never touched the Messi Ronaldo level, even though he was a prodigious talent. But yeah, I think for him to make the kind of money he's going to make in his career, that's fine. That's what he chose to do, but not quite deserved for me. Well, maybe deserved. He can have all the money, but he won't have the glory. He won't have the accolades. He won't be a top, 20 player of all time, 30 player of all time, because he just didn't choose to be. And that's harsh, because he's pretty much won everything at the club level, but he was never the leader for winning everything at the club level, except for, I guess, Santos in the early days when he won the Libertadores. I don't know the ins and outs of that, so maybe he wasn't, But to be quite honest, yeah, like that guy, like I said, I think when I put it that way, it's interesting. That guy should be the best player in the world right now, and he just went to France and chose not to be. So
I think
I don't know.
him and Eden Hazard at that they were, I think they're the same age as well. They were sort of,
Yeah, good point.
they were sort of hitting their peaks at the same time, and I think around the same time that Hazard left Chelsea was the same time that Neymar left Barca. So it's interesting how, like, at the same time, their careers, like, curtailed pretty much. Hazard's more, though, than Neymar's. Hazard barely played for Real because he was, like, always injured.
Yeah, but Neymar played in Ligue 1. Like,
he still played, though.
I don't want to
he was still getting pretty much full seasons. And, like, sure, Hazard does, to his name, have, I think... Does he have 3 Champions Leagues, or how many does he have? I'm going to have a look.
Hazard?
Yeah, definitely has 1.
Does he have 1?
Yeah, the last one. Like, I think he was still part of
Was he still at Chelsea in 20... Oh, yeah.
2019 to 2003, so he might have 2.
Has he actually won 1, though? Was he still at Chelsea in 2021? He wasn't.
No.
He'd already left.
No, so 2019 to 2023.
Yeah, so only this Real one that he was not a part of, really.
Just that
in
one.
Any way, shape, or form. Yeah, no, but one thing I will say, because Neymar is now leaving off to Middle East, and for all intents and purposes, his career is over.
I wouldn't be surprised if Hazard goes as well.
Yeah, he should go. He's got nothing to offer in Europe. He's one that I won't be disappointed because he's finished. He's cooked. But Neymar, we'll end the pod on a good memory of Neymar. The best performance I ever saw. Well, obviously he had that Puskás winning goal, which was quite nice for Santos. I think in 2011. But the best, I think we'll be aligned on what Neymar's best ever performance was. I want to see if you can pick it out, or if you don't even have it.
The performance against PSG.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's 6-1.
The miraculous comeback. Messi was on the pitch, and he was the leader of that, and he was the instigator of that. And
did he score that free kick?
Yeah, he scored the free kick. He might have scored the penalty as well. I think he might have taken the penalty and scored it, that Suarez sort of won. So
let me have a look.
In terms of a great moment in club football that Neymar gave us, I think he gave us that, and that is an enduring image that I'll remember of Neymar, because that was an incredible comeback. And yeah, so look, it's not all bad with Neymar. He could have been so much more.
Yeah, he scored a penalty, and Messi also scored a penalty.
Yeah. So yeah, there you go. A nicer, happier memory to leave us with on Neymar.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think I've emptied it out the notebook now for the weekend, and yeah.
Yeah. I'll
pot it out.
I'm not sure if we'll have a preview pod. We'll see, because like there's still. I think Man City versus Newcastle is this weekend, but other than that.
We got the Super Cup final, I think, as well, don't we?
That's
Do we have Sevilla,
tomorrow,
Man City?
I think. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I'll watch that at least.
Yeah.
I think we'll probably only do anything if we really feel like we need to do something.
Yeah.
Later in the
Otherwise, we'll reconvene early next week for another one. Maybe we'll.
For sure.
Maybe once the transfer window is over, we'll get Matti on to have a rant about Chelsea and Liverpool and whatnot.
That would be good. Yeah, I need to hear this rant about that.
Yeah, that'll be nice to add on to the pod. But Caleb, it was a pretty good opening weekend, at least. So far, I'm happy. I'm happy.
Well, of course you are. Your team won.
Well, not just that. Like I also talked about like the referees as well. I'm pretty happy that they're starting to actually take some responsibility and start to be a little bit more proactive. So that's always helpful. But it was sort of marred by the non-VAR intervention last night, but whatever, it is what it is. Two teams that don't. Well, one team sort of concerns me because they're like a direct challenger for like a spot that we're going for. But other than that, whatever, it is what it is.
Good to be back.
It's good to be back. It's good to be back. So to everyone that's tuned in, like, subscribe, all that stuff. Comment as well. See if you have any requests, I don't know, or feedback, drop it in the comments. Yeah. But,
constructive criticism.
That too. Or if you just want to swear at us, whatever, do what you like. But yeah, thanks for coming, and bye for now.